Good morning, and to our friends joining us abroad, good evening. Welcome to Mirage Talks. Today, we are going to talk about a conscious and smart use of artificial intelligence. We welcome data scientist and artificial intelligence from the Walt Disney Company, Camila MT. Thank you so much for joining us today, Camila. Let's get started.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It's an honor for me to be here. So, hi everyone. Thank you very much again, Marriage Institute, for the invitation. I hope you all enjoyed today's conversation. Before we start, I would like to make a brief introduction of myself. My name, as you could see on the agenda, is Camila MT. I work as a manager Regis data scientist. I have 10 years of experience in decision making and strategy for large organizations worldwide, where I mix different disciplines and very opposites in sometimes, such as design, creativity, user experience, data science, and artificial intelligence. I work in data strategy as an ambassador of digital and cultural transformation. In a few words, I love creativity and technology, and there is definitely my passion. So I would like to start today's talk with some facts. Perhaps you already read about this information, and if not, it's something curious to discuss about. But 80% of the CEOs around the world believe that AI will significantly change the way they do business in the next 5 years. No, it's a reality right now what AI is doing for every business across the globe. But we understand that it's going to be upper. No, the technology and the innovation it brings us, and also that AI could contribute to the global economy with around 15 trillion in dollars by 2030. So we understand that AI it's definitely a fact, and it's increasing being used to make decisions and predictions that are affecting most of our lives in our day by day. So we are very curious about how we have to be prepared in order to affront this technology and how to be prepared in this AI era. So when I mention the word to different people and I talk about that I am working in AI, their expressions and phrases turns like wow, no, like something very complex and difficult to understand, and I think that they seem that the term it's like incredible strong, and if it feels like it's something from the faraway future, no. And I think this is curious because although we are reading all the time and we understanding how AI is affecting our lives and businesses, every person in this world who has access to a smartphone use AI every day of their life without noticing it perhaps. And the main applications we use every day, such as Amazon, Google, Disney Plus, Netflix, and Facebook, they are the most used apps in this world thanks to this technology. So that is why it feels for me like it still feels like a trip to the future, no? And that is very curious because we are using it every day and it's part of our lives. So I found out that understanding the complexity of how AI really works is difficult to comprehend. We are not getting any merit of that, but in the opposite, we use internet every day of our lives, and we do not know exactly how it works, how things happen. But likewise, they are part of our everyday task, and we take advantage of this technology in every term that we can. So find about this complexity, it's something that we need to take into consideration, but there are other parts that we need to understand and also deep dive in that type of content. So I love always to share like this example because it's very simple and it's a model that it had been developed like 50 years ago, and it's not something very like with a lot of innovation. And if you want, you can try it right now. If you pick your phone and you open the photo app and you search for beach or mountain photos, depending what you love the most. There you're going to see an image classifier model that it's developed with machine learning right in your hands. And as I mentioned before, it's like a model built like a lot of years ago. It's not something that it's for the short term. but it's right in our hands and we use it every day of our life. So that, I think, it's the most interesting stuff about this. And I like very much this example because of some of the insights that they bring us. No, how much time do we need to organize all our beach or mountain photos? And we can suggest, depending of how many photos do we have. I have like around 20,000 photos approximately, so around an hour if I am very fast, and my phone just solved it in 1 second. So what I love the most about AI, that it helps us to be more efficient and save time. And I don't know if you feel the same about this, but for me, saving time is the most precious gift because it's one of the limited resources that we have in our professional and personal life. And that's when we use technology in our favor. We understand that that technology is really a complement and not a replacement of anything. And that it's a very important fact that we need to carry on and develop, not just for our companies, but also for our teams. And of course, that knowing how the classifier model that I showed you some minutes before, it's another problem. And I think that perhaps most that you are here, you are developing and you're in the journey of understanding the logic behind that. But understanding how to apply this technology to what type of problems and generate an impact on a business is another big challenge that I want to discuss today along the conversation. And each role that it's part of this AI project, it's essential to make this amazing technology work. I like to name this type of solutions like playing in a team game, because if each one is not there, you can even compete, and each one is essential to make this work and also more interesting to understand. So under this concept of team game, I would love to introduce an ideal workflow of how to apply AI to business and how the team needs to be developed. It all begins with a business problem or question we need to solve. So every time in this, of course, it's in my experience, every time I start an AI project, it all starts with, okay, I have this problem at my business I need to solve. And we go deep dive in that problem in order to understand how the workflow is going to continue. So yeah, this is the first part of the business problem or question we need to solve. It's mostly developed by the decision intelligence or science team. And this is a term, perhaps decision science, that it has been introduced to Google, to all of us. And it's very interesting type of profile because it's combined different AI disciplines and professionals into one unified field in order to understand data science, social science, managerial science, in order to be a very complex profile, in order to understand deeply the problem, and after that, continue with a possible solution. And after that, you need to acquire and clean the data, and the data engineering team came along. From here exactly, we conduct an explanatory analysis and analytics, and the data science team are the key persons and players in this scope of the process. And to draw a conduct after the conclusions and the analysis, and also making the impact directly on the business, there we have to be very good partners with the business developer teams and the data product also, in order to develop and make a final solution of it. So in order to make a brief summary, there are lots of profiles that we need to have in this type of AI projects, and each of them in this process, decision science, data engineering, data science team, and business partners or data products, they are all like essential to make AI successful. So in order to create this workflow successful and we need to have, as I mentioned before, a very solid structure and culture in every organization. Transforming into a data-driven organization takes more than technology, and it's something that I like to mention a lot, because perhaps we have the best technology that we can develop, but if we didn't and we don't really focus in the part of the culture, this is going to cause a lot of problems, and I'm going to also debate about that in some following slides. So since the change required like new skill sets, processes, and behaviors to support deployment of self-service analytic solutions, executives here plays a critical role in advocating and orchestrating this change. So we need like not just the team, and as I mentioned before, all these data science teams or decision science, data engineering team, we need also like a structure in order to make these type of projects a really success. So this is, in my opinion, and talking through my experience, that in order to develop a data-driven culture into organizations, I think that storytelling data plays a very key role, because our objective is not just to show data. We want to tell stories with that, because mainly when an insight came along with a story behind, you have more chances that the idea is going to be taken in consideration, and that it's time that the team have developed and a lot of effort that we have there. So translating data analysis into layman's terms in order to influence business decisions or actions, I think it's a mission critical skill, sorry, in order to develop. So this is because of faster access to data give us stronger analytics capabilities. This is another question that I listen a lot, and they bring me a lot. If we understand that we need to have the technology, we need to have the team, how we can build a strong digital workspace. And in this period, I think that we have to take into consideration three main steps. No, first of all, the part of the people who are the most important in all this process. So first of all, this can happen thanks to the teams that we are developing, and we need to identify leadership, promote digital culture first, and also merge and work in these merging profiles. On the other hand, we have the processes, and we need to improve collaboration. We need to create an innovation pipeline. We need to develop responsive corporate culture. And last but not least, the part of the technology, of course, that we need to embrace digital transformation and enable insights from data developed in order to make stronger steps and also be more secure of what we are doing. So that is why I would like to discuss today much deeper in that we all know that AI has the superpower, and it's next on our corner. As I showed you before, we are using it in our phones, and it's part of our daily dates. So, but how I use AI, it's well, and how it can impact and help me improve my business, I think that it's another big challenge we are going to develop, and every business is facing now. And if it's not facing now, they are going to be facing in the near future. So what I love about AI is that we can use it to solve problems, and every company or business in this world faces different kind of problems during their lives, beside of the stage of maturity they are. So how can I use AI? It's a frequent question different leaders ask for, but what I like to ask them is, what problem do you have, or what do you need to solve? Not just assume that this is going to be the ideal technology for us. So because AI can or cannot be the solution for every problem that our business is going to be facing. So this happens because most of them, they assume that they need technology, and most of the times they are right, but not always is like that. So you need first to understand deeply the problem, and make a lot of interviews with the principal stakeholders, with the final users, with the consumers, if this applies. But generally, the problem is presented to one team from another team who is not perhaps always like the final user. So in this chain of people, we listen to a lot of assumptions, and that make us work for the team who is presenting the problem, but not for the final user who has this problem to be solved, who is the most important in this situation. And I like to call them the king here, because we need to develop things according to our users and final users, who are going to be the ones to take all the insights about this information that we are bringing. So in other words, in this first stage, you need to be a good person who listens. I think it's one of the biggest challenges that we have in this AI era. So I like to call this like the face, the genius lamp, because we need to become a very good storyteller. And I bring again the term of data storytelling, and give the people or team who presents the problem the superpower to ask for everything they need. Be creative and show them that they can dream for everything that they would like to have. Because generally, when you have the first meeting, the people or team will come with the problem and the solution, like in a closed box. And the most interesting stuff came along when this box is open, and a lot of new alternatives came along. So after having this first part of research, we would be able to decide if artificial intelligence or machine learning, it's the profound technology for the business problem we want to solve. And that's why this stage, I think it's so important, because you are preventing of failing. I am not saying that failing is something bad, but it's going to cost a lot of money if we fail. So if we can go some step backwards, and that's also the reason why a lot of AI projects are failing in this new era of a lot of problems and technology. And generally, this is because of assumptions and not understanding correctly the problem, because AI, it's not the solution to all the problems that we are going to find for now and the next year. So there are other technologies and other methodologies that we can use. And if after this phase we decide that AI might or is the solution to our problem, we must follow also another steps, and that is another part of the journey and the project and the process that we need to carry on. So I think one of the most interesting stuff about AI, it's like, thanks to AI, we are having more access to data, and data tell us things we don't know that they were even there. So it comes with a lot of new solutions and alternatives. Data help us to break preconcepts. The interesting thing about the data is that perhaps you come with a preconcept of an idea, and data is going to show you something else. It gives us a lot of courage. The data give us courage to do things that perhaps before they were very difficult to go ahead. And also, I like to also mention the part that for me, it's a lie that data beats experience. So here, I think they're the best allies in this journey. So data plus experience of every business, I think it's unstoppable. So there you have to do the best partnership you can do there. And also that, as I mentioned before, in the example of the Genius Lamp part of the research, making good questions are going to be very good, because having a correct statement and a very business question, a very good business question, it's going to help us a lot to understand the problem. And with that also, we are also preventing of failing and also understanding better the problem. And of course, it helps us to break with confirmation bias. So this is why I think data is so important. But what else do we need in order to achieve our goals in this AI era? No, so you perhaps have listened a lot to this phase that data is the oxygen of AI. So the first step, I think it would be very important to understand what data do we have. So this opens another big gate, and we need to understand where do we have our data, if it's clean enough, if it has the size that we need it. If the answer of most of these questions is a no, so we need to attack firstly this problem, because without data, AI, it's not going to be good, and it's not going to solve any of our business problems. So I remember one of the first AI projects I have working in start. I remember I was so excited. We were having like a lot of meeting, brainstormings, research. And when we say, okay, we need to action this plan, and we go to the part of the data, we understand that the data was not even impossible to reach about, because it was for another company, and we were not going to be able to reach that. So at that moment, the whole project failed in just one moment. And this mainly happened because we understand that the data that we are going to have for that project was not enough. And we understand that we need to first to look for another solution. So This is because we recognize that without the amount of data that we have, any model could be developed, and at that moment the project failed in just 1 minute, so very, very, very fast. So as I mentioned before, I think that data and AI are the perfect partners in this journey. The amazing part of this is that we have data. AI could help us to automate most of the analysis that we need to develop. Can search for trends and bring to the front the most interesting things to take quick business decisions. And there is one of the biggest advantage we can take from AI. I think that also artificial intelligence will help us to become as intelligent, as personalized as we want in order to become the best listeners to our customers. Most of the business has a final user and a final customer or an end user. So that's why I think it's so interesting to take this into consideration. And if you look for the path, first we need all the data as we can so that we can recommend the best services and products, because it gives us the chance not also to understand our final user or consumer, but give them a personalized experience, giving them the sensation that the product was designed just for them. And that's why as much data as we can have, AI, it could help us to understand that problem, no? But also as much data as we can have, the administration and the engineering, the models that we have to develop becomes much complex. So here I think it's appear another big challenge. And also, as I mentioned before, I think the other big challenge that we are going to face in is the cultural and transformation side of things. So how we train and help the teams to change the way they work, it's something very complex in this AI era, because the analysis to transform this data into business, data and insights into business idea, it's definitely one of the most complex roles that we need to acquire and have in our teams. But we also need to have all the key persons in the team so that this process works really good and we are working okay on that side. And I want to add more complex to this situation. What happens, for example, if the final user receives a data insight that is the opposite of what they are doing, how they feel about that, about this, and here it's what we bring to the front, the most sensitive side and human side of this incredible transformation we are all living thanks to artificial intelligence. All the people, all the teams and people who work all their lives in some particular way, and we come now and say, okay, we need to change this structure, you're going to receive a lot of new insights. So we need to ask a lot if this team is prepared to change, really, because we cannot apply good AI if the teams and the company that we are working on don't want or can't really change. We need to be very careful and guide the different profiles so that when AI launches, we have all the team on board. And if not, you will start a fight that will not help anybody. So this is another reason and big reason why a lot of AI projects fail. So my humble advice here is that when you recognize that you have a business problem and AI is the solution for that, you have to open 2 or 3 working tracks. From one side, you need to start looking to the data and how it's going to be used, like I mentioned before. And at the same time, you need to see and understand your team, how you can help them jump in and see all the amazing opportunities AI is going to give them, how they would become better professionals and not seeing AI as a threat, how your team is going to carry this over, is our goals as leaders, and we cannot force it. So we have to go by their side and be there as soon as they need us. And final, but not least, if we have final user of this project, see how open they are to listen to different points of view, if they're open to listen to new points of view and solutions. If we have them into considerations because they are part of the journey and they are part of our process. Because here also we have another big challenge, because you can work of an incredible analysis with artificial intelligence and machine learning project, and the final user says, okay, but I have been working like for this way for the last 15 years. Why we have to trust in this algorithm or insight you are bringing to us? So here it appears another big challenge to solve, and we need to take all these steps into considerations because, as I mentioned before, this is a a team a team player field where we need to develop and understand all the parts at the same time. That's why I feel so incredible that we all know, we listen to the news, we listen all the time, the word AI, and also mostly because of this pandemic that we have lived on and all the data analysis that we have seen. We all know that AI is going to change and impact all business across the globe. Most company teams and professionals see all these changes like sometimes in a faraway future. So that is one of the most complex problems that we are going to see as soon as we start an AI project, because we need to guide them and show them the advantage of this change so that everyone is able to transform and it's not loose on the way. When I start working with AI, I will never forget that when I just say the word AI to people that I have been working on, and I mention AI, they all say me the same phrase that, okay, you're going to take our jobs away. And it's a term that I think it generates a lot of afraid in people, and we cannot dismiss that point. But from my point of view and from my experience, this happens a lot because nobody's teaching and showing how this works. And AI can improve their day by day without seeing this like a threat, not? And I think that it's our role and biggest challenge as leaders. We cannot not take into consideration the human side of this transformation, mainly because that people and that team members that we have are going to be the ones who can make AI successful or not. So they are very important, and we need to take them into consideration and work with them as soon as we start and as soon as we see that AI is going to be part of our day-by-day lives and projects and teams and structures. So if we are talking of AI since 1995, I was, I think, 2 years old at that time. Why I think it seems so unstoppable now? So I think this happened because of the two following factors. First of all, because data collections and processing becomes easier thanks to the advance of technology. And as I mentioned before, AI is the oxygen of AI. Data, sorry, is the oxygen of AI. So that's why we can think about this transformation. And also because computer processing has become faster. And these are like the trees to help generate the oxygen. And because if you do not have the correct processing in a time frame period, that big volumes of data can be analyzed at all. So that's why since I started working in AI, every project I start, I work and think like as I have two big challenges: the implementation of the technology and how the team is going to feel about it. The impact of AI in every business, I think it's a fact. And we can discuss it how much more or less, but we know that it's going to impact our day by day. But if we can anticipate and start working on this transformation, we're going to be much prepared. One of the most clear statements that AI brings us is that now everything is possible, and things that are not like far away, like 4 years ago, we thought they were impossible. Now they are things that we are using every day. So I think that in this algorithm age, the goal is how to become more and develop new skills, become and incorporate all these tools and things that are going to make us more interesting profiles and more complete, would make us acknowledge that knowing and taking all these things into consideration, as I mentioned before, become a better listener, become more creative, have analytic thinking, have a mind of problem solving, become a good storyteller, because storytelling also is going to help us the way we talk and also develop our ideas, and also become a very good business partner. So without taking into consideration all the human side and all the skills we need to develop, AI, I think it's really impossible to achieve. So to create an excellent business, you need to create the perfect combination between AI and people. And there is where I think that we all become unstoppable and we can dream for everything we need for our business, and that any company has no limits when you understand how that has to work together and be like a unified field. So thank you very much for your time and to listen to my talk. I would love to see if you have any question and anything you need to ask me. I hope that I have all the answers to your questions, and if not, we can also chat later to discuss much more.
Camila, thank you so much. What an insightful talk today. And as she said, we'll open for Q&A. You can either unmute yourself and ask a question directly, or of course, send your questions to the chat box.
If I may, I actually have a lot. Actually, I have a lot of questions, but they're a little bit more about your kind of concept of where AI is going, and a little bit farther down the line. Right now, we're talking about AI as an analytical agent, if I understand you properly. Do you, and please forgive me if this is off topic, please feel free to shut down this line of conversation. But I'm concerned with AI being evolved as a moral agent. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
Yes, I think, Brian, it's an excellent question. I think that for now, we are like stopping in some cases AI to develop, and we are saying, okay, for now, it's okay if you help me to understand my data, to have more insights to that, because when we see how things are going to be like in a faraway future, sometimes we get scared and we say, okay, we are not prepared to go so fast. So I think now we are in that phase. And that's why I think that we need to be more prepared in this change and transformation, because now I think that we are all being very generous in the time we all need to prepare and get prepared to every phase of evolution. But that it's not going to be like that way. So I do not know if I am like answering exactly your question, but I think that yes, now we are in that phase, but I think it's not going to last a lot. And in some month, perhaps we are going to be on another phase, because changes are being really quick and very fast. But no, if you want, we can discuss that later, because I think it can be a very large conversation of discussion, very interesting.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have another question. Can you share the most interesting AI project you led at Disney, and what is the visit of AI in the metaverse future?
Yes, that's another very interesting question. I think that one of the biggest things that mostly we have developed is like, as I mentioned before, be a good listener of our customers and understanding exactly with the data what our customers needs, wants, and had interest with. I think are like the most interesting projects we have been working, and thanks to data that's now possible, and thanks to AI, because we have a lot of customers and users around the world, and have the chance to process, analyze, and have insights of so much amounts of data. Some years ago was impossible, and now we can predict, we can understand, we can see what they want, like in a lot of very interesting ways. And I can talk about AI in the metaverse, but I hope you have some news in the near future about that.
Excellent. Do we have any other questions?
I don't mean to bogart the conversation too much, but I do have another question pursuant to interesting AI projects at Disney. You mentioned predictive capabilities, and my question is, do you feel that there is a danger that we will rely too much on AI predictive capabilities? And in particular, I'm talking about giving people what they want, as opposed to creative solutions that we might be having that maybe we think they need as opposed to what they want. In other words, leading the public intuitively as opposed to following them through data.
Yes, and I love that concept because I think that the most challenge that we have is that we can suggest what we think that they want, but perhaps they really don't need it at all, and we generate like the need of that. And I think that it's something that we need to be very curious, very careful, and have a lot of responsibility of what we are suggesting. But I think that the most interesting thing about this is like to be more prepared of what they really are needing and they want to see and what they are interested for, but not generating something that they don't need at all. And I think that it's part also for like the human side that I talk a lot, that it's to be responsible of the technology, because we could all have access to this type of technology. We can make a lot of interesting like suggestion of stuff, but we need to be very careful. And I think that it's part of our responsibility when we develop this type of technology, and it's something that we need to take into consideration and not think like it's a problem of others. And I think that it's part of what we need to do and what we need to carry out about.
We have time for another question or two before we close.
Unless somebody stops me, I'm going to ask one more.
Please, Brian, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I feel, and forgive me if I'm mistaking these terms, but I feel that what's happening right now in terms of AI and user experience is that AI is being used a lot to predict what people will like and will respond to, as a tool simply to encourage screen time. And I feel that we have biases toward anger, rage, and confrontation. Do you think that it's possible to use AI to change some of those biases in the algorithms toward agreement, enjoyment?
Yes.
And yeah.
Definitely. And I think that it was very interesting. And also going to your first question is that at the first time, like we say, okay, we have all this amount of data, it's incredible. We are not biases of our information and what we think about. And now, if you read like most of the papers and information about AI, it's like how to see AI without AI biases, because it also brings with that. So I think that a lot of things that we say, okay, now with AI, we are leaving biases from apart, and now we are trying to solve how AI is going to have their own biases. So I think that from one side, yes, from other, I think we need to work a lot, and that are the things that I think we are in that process of developing and improving and having better stuff, because from one hand, we see a lot of solutions and alternatives, and from other side, we are now like seeing the biases that we were seeing before also with the technology. So I think it's something very interesting. I think that they are going to be, all the companies, very careful on this. And I think it's something that we need to take a lot of attention, because it's something that it's happening right now. And we are all like trying to understand deeply what is happening there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, on that note, on behalf of Paul Mirage and the Mirage Institute, Camila, thank you so much for enlightening our Mirage tribe, taking the time today. It was excellent. Thank you so much. Everyone, thank you for joining us. And Ellie, as always, thank you for putting together such wonderful, impactful presentations for the Mirage Talks. I want to bring up one note. You guys will see this coming soon, and please reach out. We have our upcoming 45 Plus program competition, alumni reunion that will be in Tel Aviv on April 7th. You'll be able to find more information on our website. as well as invitations will be coming in just a few days. So thank you so much for participating. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It was an honor. Thanks.
Take care.